With the Ender 3 starting to show its age, the Ender 3 V2's got a lot more to offer. Let's take a look. Hey, welcome to The First Layer. My name's Richard. I'm your host here every Wednesday and Saturday night. On Saturday nights, we do a show called Ask for Help, where you can get your questions answered live from 7 to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is the show that explores the world of 3D printing, and today is no different because on the table in front of me, we have the Creality Ender 3 V2. Now, we all know that I'm a huge fan of the Creality Ender and CR products. I think that they had a winner on their hands when they first launched the version or the original version of the Ender 3. I think that this machine has got some great entry-level features and benefits to it, and I think that it's going to be a good model for anybody looking for 3D printer or getting started in the hobby of 3D printing. And I've always said that about the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro. But now we've got the Ender 3 V2. They say you can't put lipstick on a pig. Well, let's get into the meat and dive into the hands-on review of the Ender 3 V2. The Ender 3 V2 follows a typical trend in the 3D printing space today. It really is going above and beyond what its original predecessor was. Now, what did I find with this printer and some of the things that I liked about this printer? It is pretty much on the same frame. There's no real difference. In fact, there's still two holes in the one side where the power supply used to be. Now, they've tidied things up a little bit on this machine, and they've done a few things that are a little better for you as a consumer. One of the things they did was they put a belt tensioner right here on the X gantry. Now, when you're assembling this, this can be a little tricky to do. They also put a belt tensioner on the bed or the Y-axis as well, so you can tension up the belt without having to put on any little clips or anything like that. Now, one of the other things that they did was they really increased the screen real estate. And I'm going to give you a close-up of this. Now, as we can see here, the screen real estate is huge in comparison to what it was on the original Ender. Now, what I didn't like about this was they made it to come off, so we can see here that it comes off, but you really can't take it anywhere. The cord is definitely not long enough for you to take it anywhere and do anything with it. The other thing that they could have done, but they didn't do, was they could have made this a touchscreen. They didn't make this a touchscreen at all. What they did do, however, is put a dial on it. Now, as you go through the menus on this printer, you have your print menu. You can see we've got some files in there. They have a prepare menu, so you can do all your regular things. And then they have a control menu. Now, one of the things that you're going to find with the Ender 3 V2 is, depending on when you bought yours, you may have to do a firmware upgrade. Now, how you're going to know is by going to this screen here where it says info, and it's the very last screen on the dial. And what you want to check is that firmware. Now, we've got firmware version 1.0.1, which is the latest version of the firmware as of the recording of this video. Now, you may have a version that is 1.00. If you do have that, then you need to go to Creality's website, and we'll put a link down in the description below as to where you can find that and do the update on this. And it's very easy to do the update. So let's head back. So you can see you get a nice, decent screen. The only thing that they didn't do with this screen is they didn't make it OLED. And I think that this would have benefited better from an OLED screen, because then you would have been able to see it better from certain angles. I noticed that while I was using this particular printer, that I had to be in the right spot to make sure that I could see where the lit square was at any given time. And it's kind of tough to see if you're not in the right position. So an OLED screen would have definitely helped here. Now, those minor things out of the way, what else did they do to make this a better printer? Well, they put on a glass bed with just a couple of simple clips. No more binder clips, no more of the magnetic beds, which we all know that magnetic beds weren't great anyway. So The magnetic beds were made to be replaceable, so at 25 bucks a pop, and there I go knocking stuff over, at 25 bucks a pop, they weren't really a great asset or a great improvement to the print quality. And there was issues if the bed was a little warped. Well, you were always going to have a print that didn't stick properly. So now they've gone to this new bed, which is very similar to another manufacturer's bed. This is carbonite, carbon coated. It's something like that, but we'll put it down here. What else did they do? Well, they gave you this funky little wheel that just sits right up on top of your extruder. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to help pull in the material and get it down the Bowden tube and into the hot end. Is the hot end any different? No, it's exactly the same hot end that you're going to find on all the entry-level Creality machines. There's no difference in it, but they did put a nicer little cage on it. This is now plastic, not metal. It does have a fan here and a fan in the front. The wheels themselves are actually a little bit better the way that they did this, because the way that they've designed this now is it's much easier for you to be able to adjust them so that it doesn't put too much tension on these rods and you don't get uneven lift. It is still a single motor driven lead screw on the Z axis. But the other thing that they did was they manufactured it so that everything was underneath the machine, which is a great asset to anybody that wants to keep clutter out of their way. Now, aesthetically, it looks a lot better, because if you don't have a dedicated space to put this in, well, this machine now can be pretty much placed anywhere. It's got a little drawer that they added to the front here so you can store all of your goodies that come with the machine, like your Allen keys and your snippers and that kind of stuff. You will notice, though, with this bed that you do every once in a while have to clean it with a little isopropyl alcohol just to get the stick properties to keep going. And if at some point that you wear out the bed, and they do, it's just the nature of the beast, you can always take the bed off or just flip it over and use the glass side, which is kind of convenient. They put in a nice switch at the back here for on-off. They've tidied up all of the cabling so that nothing gets caught, nothing gets moved around. The extruder, going back to that for a second, the extruder is still a plastic extruder. And this is the one thing that I've always complained about when it comes to Creality products, is this plastic extruder. Over time, these things wear out, and then it's a $25 upgrade for you to go to an all-metal extruder. And they do sell the metal extruder. It's great. They've done a little bit better job with the bending of the metal, so everything is nice and square now. You don't have that same problem of getting that Z-axis lead screw to line up properly. I found it very quick and easy to put it together. It only took about 20 minutes. Still, the spool holder is on top. You can relocate it to the back if you like. And they put a little metal grommet on the intake of the extruder so that you don't have that same wear problem that we had with the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro, which means that your filament was wearing a little groove into the lever of the extruder. That way it was kind of pulling back on you. Now, was this perfectly tuned out of the box? No. And not any printer is perfectly tuned. I did do a little bit of tuning, and I followed the tuning advice from Michael over at Teaching Tech, and I'll leave a link to his video down below. He's done a really good job on helping you tune your 3D printer. What else makes this a better printer than the original? Well, I'm going to tell you straight up, it now is a silent printer, and it's boasting a 32-bit board. So you've got power, you've got speed, and you've got silent printing. So overall, the 3D printer as a whole is a good upgrade. And it, in this case, you can definitely dress it up, and it's got some quality to it. And they've definitely dressed it up here. Now, getting inside the front shroud, you do have screws on the back that you'll have to access in order to take it off if you've got any clogs or anything like that. or if you're changing out the hot end, you're going to have to remove this and then put in a new hot end. Other than that, there's nothing else I can really say about this machine, good or bad. It is definitely worth the money, coming in at just under 400 Canadian dollars. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on a variety of websites. You can find it from our friends over at Solarbotics, PM Hobbycraft, and I believe you can also find it from Spool 3D here in Calgary, and a few others along the way. Other than that, let's take a look at some of the prints. Now, according to the manual, this printer is designed as an FDM or FFF printer, as you already know, and it's designed to print PLA in its standard configuration. Now, does that mean you can print other materials? Probably you can. I wouldn't try ABS or PETG through this machine unless you are going to upgrade the hot end, because as we know, you need a much better hot end that will reach certain temperatures in order for you to be able to go ahead and use other materials. Now, everything that you see in front of me here is all been printed with PLA. And let's take a look at the quality of parts that we got from the models that actually came. Some of these actually came on the disc itself. We'll start with the typical cat. We know that the cat itself is the same file that they always have. Now, I don't like using their test file. I'd much rather cut the file myself and then see how it works. I had some brown filament left over, so I thought I'd make a brown cat. And here we go. We've got, the quality is really good. This was done at 0.2 millimeter layer height. There is a little bit of area that we can see here on the top that's not super great, but you know, overall, it's not a bad print. I can live with that. And there's the dog. It's no longer a big dog. It's a little dog, little tiny dog on a little tiny base. This is going to be your telltale, though. This is the XYZ cube that we always print, and everybody should print one of these. So what we want to have a look at here is how well did it do when it was printing this Aeron Blue Silk PLA. It did a really good job. There's very, very little ghosting. The top layer is really well done. No gaps there. And this looks like a cube. And now, the other thing about this is it measured in almost perfectly at 20.04 on two sides and 20.01 on the Z. And then, of course, we had to do the traditional benchy. And the benchy looks great. We got a little bit of zitting, and I think that has to do more with the filament being old and being left out in the air than anything else. But the bottom looks great. All of the arches came out great. There's no ghosting or salmon skinning on this whatsoever. And with this Aeron Silk, you'll really see that if it has those issues. So I'm really pleased with that. This little box was one of the boxes that were on the SD card. It's just a little heart box that has a lid. I did it in purple. This is the TheFirstLayer purple. And to be perfectly honest with you, it handled the detail well. It didn't require any supports whatsoever, even though this detail is sticking out. There was a little bit of stringing on the back, but again, I think that has more to do with the settings in the slicer, and we're going to talk about the slicer in just a minute. The next one I did was this cup. It's called the Monkey Cup, or Monkey on the card, and it's a little cup that you can put pens and stuff in, and the detail on that, this was done at 0.20, and that Monkey Cup looks amazing. I'm really, really pleased with the way that that came out. It took about 11 hours to print that, but it sure looks good. And then finally, I found this bear online, on Thingiverse as a matter of fact. It's really designed to be printed. This was upscaled to 250%. It's really designed to be printed on an SLA printer, but I wanted to see if the Ender 3 could handle it. And it did not disappoint me in any shape or form. Detail in the face is great. There was a little bit of a layer shift right here, only on one foot though, so I don't know what happened there. Because normally you'd have a layer shift throughout the whole thing. I think it might have had something to do with the supports. Now for both of these, the Monkey Cup and the Bear, I used tree supports, which is under the experimental tab in Cura. But I'm really happy with that. I can live with that little layer shift. Worst case scenario, I'll just cut it off and I'll glue it a little forward. But I'm really kind of happy with the way that that came out. So let's talk about the software that comes with this machine now. The software that you're going to get is a version of Cura. A lot of companies are doing this now where they're taking Cura 4.2.1 and they are adapting it to their own products. Lotmaxx has done it. Creality has done it, and there's a few others out there that have done it as well. And do I like what they've done? Yes. Do I think they could have done it on the most current version? Yes. But do the profiles work? They absolutely do work fine. Once you install it though, it will say, listen, there's a new version available. Do you want to install the new version? And it's not the Creality tuned version of the software. So leave it at the one that comes with it. You should be fine for all of your needs. They have all of the current Creality lineup in there, and I think it'll be fine for you. Now, what's my verdict on this? Well, I'm going to tell you, this is going to get 4.5 hot ends, and I'll tell you why that it gets 4.5 hot ends. Some of the things that they could have done, which really wouldn't have cost too much, and they could have worked it into the price. Again, get away from these plastic injection molded extruders. Go to a metal extruder. I think that's a much better way to go. And that's my only issue with this entire machine is the extruder. I do like the fact that they gave you a little wheel to put on there. I do like the fact that now you can adjust these for tension. You will, as you're setting this up, have to adjust all of the eccentrics just to make sure that everything is sitting properly. Again, like I've shown many times, you want to make sure that when you put on the X gantry that it is level before you drop in that lead screw. I've got a couple of videos where you see me actually go ahead and build the older version of this, and it's exactly the same. Building this is exactly the same as building the older versions. I do like that they put in this little box at the bottom, a little drawer to hide put all of your stuff in, your Allen keys and your clippers and things like that. And in all honesty, I think it's well worth the upgrade. You can find this for a little over $300 or a little under $300 in the US, and it's a little over $300 in Canada. Your mileage is going to vary in terms of price where you're going to be able to get it. So do I recommend this for beginners? Absolutely. I think this is a worthy upgrade to the original Ender 3. It is designed for beginners that are coming into the hobby, and I still stand by this printer as being a great entry-level printer, and I think that this new version is going to go a long way and be very popular. Now, when they come out with the Pro model, maybe they'll do a few things. They may go to an all-metal extruder along with BL Touch. You can add a BL Touch to this. I don't believe there's a bracket out for it yet, but give it some time on Thingiverse. It's still pretty brand new. Somebody will come up with a bracket to attach a BL Touch. There is a spot on the board already for you to plug in your BL Touch. The other thing is, I think that this could use a filament out detection unit, and I think I may add one of my own. But I haven't had any problems with the bed. As you can see, everything is stuck to the bed. I printed a variety of materials. Yes, they're PLA, but they're from all different manufacturers, and they all came out great. Really no problems with this. Everything's printed so far, so good. So go ahead, if you're interested or you're just getting started, I highly recommend the Ender 3 V2. With that said, my friends, thanks for joining us today. Hey, listen, if you want to support the show, you can do so by getting one of our fancy t-shirts like I print PLA, I print PETG, or I print ABS, depending on your flavor of material that you love to print. They're available on our website at shoptheFirstLayer.com. Go ahead, check them out today. We've got sizes from extra small all the way up to 4 or 5X. So we can pretty much accommodate most people. They are a unisex t-shirt, so go ahead and check them out. And keep watching the show. Share this with your friends if you know somebody who's looking for a brand new printer or is somebody that is just starting out in the hobby and wants to get their first printer. This would be the one to, this would be the video to show them. So until I see you next time, my friends, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print.